Hiya, I'm Ed.
Hi, I'm Hugh and welcome to Tone Twins TV, and this episode is all about getting a brand new vintage guitar which you bought online and it turns up and it's covered in dirt and covered in crud, and we want to explore the process of how you make it play really well and look its best and bring it back to life a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, because there's a bit of a difference, isn't there, between vintage and sort of patina and just old and messy and crappy.
The distinction I want to make is the difference between dirt isn't patina. You can have patina without it being absolutely filthy, and you kind of want to wash your hands as soon as you finish playing it, basically. So
I think because sometimes people can have experiences with old guitars or vintage guitars and feel like, it's all just this holy stuff we can't touch and that, but actually they're still instruments and they have to be at their best for playability.
Yeah, I never really get that. People say, I can't bring myself to clean this guitar. I mean, really? I'll do it for you.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you need, any instrument, surely you should be able to play to the best it can play. There's no excuses.
Yeah.
You wouldn't drive a car down the road with old half tyres that are blown and stuff because they're the original tyres your car came with, I mean, you need to have fresh strings.
Although I got to admit, my guitars tend to be a lot cleaner than my cars.
True, yeah. And
I know.
No one look at the tyres on my car. But
no, exactly. So what have we got? This is just arrived. Big unboxing.
Well, let's have a look. What have we got in here then? So you'll probably guess from the case it's not a Strat.
No.
Whoa.
Ta-da. There you go, mate.
Wow, so
tell us what it is.
This is a 1958 ES225.
Okay.
Which is a hollow body guitar.
Yeah.
2P90s, four controls, volume, 2 tones, switch selector.
Yeah.
Lovely big tailpiece, lovely sunburst sort of finish. Nice neck and frets.
So basically, it's like a great big hollow body 1952, early 53 gold top.
Exactly, yeah. You're getting all of those sort of specs for, less money than you'd pay for just a modern replica or something. I mean, these things are still by far one of the bargains of the vintage guitar scene, aren't they? Just look at it. Look at that sunburst, I mean, you've got that faded sort of pattern, We'll show some close-ups later on, but you can see the finish cracking and stuff. And you've got parts on here some of which are regarded as sort of holy grail parts in the guitar world. I mean, these knobs, these are the same as on a burst.
Yeah.
This truss rod cover's the same. Switch tip.
Yeah.
These pickups, as you said before, are the same as you'd get in an equivalent sort of gold top Les Paul of the time or something. Different colour covers, but they're all. Because at the time, Gibson was just winding P90s, and they just went in whatever guitar they were making. They didn't sort of select them for tone or match them or any of this sort of stuff.
So throw it over, let's have a look what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, basically, the bottom line with this is it's just absolutely filthy, isn't it? The finish has got this kind of opaque, milky look, which probably just won't show up on camera, which is fine. I mean, some people like that, but I think when you've got the same effect on the back of the neck, because it's just like it's ingrained grease from thousands and thousands of gigs over decades and decades, and your hand just kind of just sticks on the neck and it feels horrible.
And you notice it a lot on the fingerboard. There's that sort of build up those marks, and whereas
this is just dead skin and fat, basically, isn't it? And
I mean, fair play. The guitar's obviously had a great life. It's been played loads, which is generally a good sign.
Looked after. I know the person who had this prior to sale, basically it was his dad's, and it hadn't been played in decades, had it? So, and that's the kind of the way it looks. I mean, it's great because you just don't have any doubts about originality. It's beautiful. So basically, the fingerboard is absolutely filthy. The frets are all tarnished. The metalwork's all tarnished. The other thing I noticed with this is that this is pretty common with these kind of tailpieces, is that the strings aren't perfectly aligned on the fingerboard, so everything is shifted towards the treble side a little bit.
And it's not the neck that's moved, is it?
No, the neck's rock solid. So basically what we've got to do is find a way to realign the strings. you know, it doesn't really affect playability, but what it does mean is that the strings aren't actually passing over the top of the pole pieces, so the pickups aren't sounding as good or as balanced as they could or as powerful. So basically what we're going to do today is just show you how we would go about cleaning one of these guitars up, how we're going to clean the fingerboard, put some conditioning oil on it maybe, polish up the frets, fresh strings, try and sort the electrics out, and set this one up ready for another 60 years of action.
Those are really good sort of skills transferable to almost any guitar.
Oh, absolutely.
So any second-hand guitar, it doesn't have to be a vintage guitar. You know, if you buy one from a shop, you'd hope and expect it to be in pristine condition. But if you're buying a second-hand guitar from, you know, eBay or Reverb or wherever you might buy one, definitely worth applying these sort of techniques. Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll give it a good clean up and hopefully get it to be as good a guitar as it can be.
Okay, let's give it a go. Is that one? Is that one? That one?
This is this one.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. There we go.
All right. Okay, so we got these strings kind of out the way, so we can just lift this back. And these are the height adjusters. So I'm gonna pop those off to one side there. Right, let's try and get these knobs up out of the way. So basically to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these spoons. There is a proper tool for this, but I'm going to go very gently with this, and I'm putting some cardboard underneath just so that the spoon doesn't actually press into the finish. And if you're careful, you can just prise them up as gently as that. Okay.
You can see the dirt around those knobs.
Yeah.
And so on. You can still see all the dirt on the guitar's body.
Okay, so basically it's just time to start cleaning. So I'm going to just move this pickup cover out of the way so we can get underneath it a little bit. I wouldn't be at all surprised if this is the first time that this has been removed since the guitar left Kalamazoo. Okay. Oh, look at that. You can actually see kind of the difference in the colour.
Shadow. You can see how the body's faded.
Yeah.
A bit sort of richer orangey sort of colour.
If you can get in down there, just underneath, just where my finger is in there, can you see that?
Yeah.
That is a solid block of maple, about 1 inch thick, that Gibson glued to the top in between the braces on these 225 models. Makes a huge difference to the tone.
So is it running where? Down?
It runs down to about there.
Down to about
yeah,
there.
It's really, really long. It's amazing. So I'd never played one of these before, and when I first got the chance to try one, I just couldn't believe how different it sounded from my 330, because it just sustains better. It has more of a kind of solid body kind of sustain quality, and it was only later I actually noticed that this massive maple block is underneath these, and it just changes the sound of this instrument. Actually makes it a more kind of versatile, fun guitar to play, in my view.
And it's maple, you say?
Yeah, looks like a inch thick maple block.
So the same wood that was used on the 1958 Les Paul top.
Oh, I'm sure they're just offcuts from 59 Les Pauls. Yeah. Okay, so basically we want to get as much of the dirt out of the finish as possible, but it's really important not to damage the finish. And you certainly don't want to go at it with something like T-cut or something like that, some abrasive compound, because basically you're just taking off the outer layer of the varnish, of the lacquer, you know, and it might not blacklight properly. It throws doubts on the originality of the finish somewhere down the line. So basically, I've had some good luck with this stuff here. It's called Virtuoso Premium Cleaner, and it doesn't make, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You're going to have to put a lot of physical effort into it, but this does seem to be able to lift dirt out of the finish without actually changing the appearance of the finish. I'm just going to put a little bit on. I'm going to start rubbing.
Insert your own jokes there.
We'll get banned if you carry on like that. Let's go. Okay, so you can see this is clearly having an effect, and I think this is a one t-shirt guitar.
Do you have a method in terms of starting in the middle and working your way out?
No,
or
no, just kind of, it's all got to be done, so it doesn't really matter where you start and where you finish, as long as you get it all done.
Perhaps not picking up on the camera, but it's noticeably from this angle much brighter and more vibrant, that colour in the middle instantly.
There you go. That's pretty good, isn't it? I'm pretty pleased with that. Okay. Just using this folded up kitchen paper, just to protect the finish as I'm working around it, and just trying to be gentle and not scratch anything up. As you can see, we're making great progress with lifting dirt out.
It's good stuff, that cleaning.
It is good stuff, actually. It's I had a real problem with my 330 neck, was just the gummiest thing, and whenever you've been playing it for a long period of time, you know, you just kind of, your hand would just feel sticky, like the neck would kind of slow down. It's the weirdest thing. And then I read about that in one of the magazines, and somebody recommended it, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to give that stuff a shot. And, you know, a little goes a long way, because I've had this a number of years now, and I do tend to do a lot of work on vintage guitars, so yeah, it's good value. I'm sure there are other cleaners that are just as good.
So it hasn't got any abrasive qualities then, it's just cleaning?
If it has got abrasive qualities, it's super gentle.
Certainly doing a good job.
So it's going to flip the cover off of that now, if I can. Ooh, there we go. Nice mucky cover. Okay, well that's come up pretty nice. If I put it next to the other one, you can see the difference in the way they look. There's a real nice kind of deep kind of shine on this, but there's still nice little bit of patina with scratches and signs of play wear. So
yeah,
it still looks
modern, doesn't it? It's still definitely a vintage piece.
It's still vibey, it still looks cool. Okie dokie, so I just pop that on there. Try and line up the screw holes. Make sure this is the right way around. I think actually one size fits all with these. Ta-da! And let's get this screwed back down so nothing untoward happens to it. There we go. And I've got to find the screwdriver. Magic screwdriver. Always try to avoid putting any downwards pressure on the screwdriver when I'm doing these. I mean, once the screw actually bites, it should just pull it down flush, and I'm obviously not over tightening it either, just kind of hand tight really, because I don't want to warp the plastic covers at all. If you press down with a screwdriver and you slip, and it's really easy to do, the screwdriver can end up slipping off, scratching the finish, making a dent in the finish. So yeah, just ensuring that you don't put any downwards pressure makes the likelihood of or the possibility of doing any damage a lot less. Right, let's get this neck pickup off. Again, just trying to keep the screwdriver safely locked into the head of the screw. See, these ones are shorter because they don't have to go through the depth of the spacer as well. It helps from a safety aspect as well to ensure that you're using the right screwdriver for the job. I love this blue screwdriver, joking aside, because it's just really sharp on the end, and it just always seems to fit these vintage screws tightly. They don't slip, they don't damage the head of the screw, so I've been using it for years. Okay, so there's our other P90 in there. This is the masking tape they used to put around just to kind of cover over the solder joint, because the lead out wire from the pickup there is going onto the central core wire of this braided wire. So they just wrapped a little bit of masking tape around it, and that is now actually brittle and completely dried out, and best not to kind of risk breaking that if you possibly can. You see the depth of the colour there, and a little bit of a tan line around the neck pickup hole there. It's just such a beautiful colour, and I think cleaning all this kind of milky opaque grease out of the finish just reveals the kind of richness of this Gibson finish from the late 50s. Okay, so we finished cleaning around the neck pickup now. It's all looking really nice, so I'm just going to pop this freshly cleaned pickup back on, and we'll get these screws back into position. Okay, so just going to clean this bit around the controls here. It's a little bit on the rear bout, and the top is finished. As I extricate the scissors from the string, I'm just going to fold this down. I'm going to pop a little bit of kitchen paper under there just to protect it. And we're just going to carefully flip the guitar over. I'm saving these strings because I basically want to string it back up with these just to check the intonation and check everything's fine before putting the new strings on. So that's why we've still got this happening. So I'm going to flip this over, put it down carefully, and work can begin on this mucky backside. Okay, so we cleaned up the neck here. So basically, I'm just going to take off these tuners, these vintage Grovers, which are probably worth a bob or two, eh? Let's get these off.
Now, the guitar would have been modified when those were fitted, wouldn't it?
Yeah, these wouldn't have been original fittings, but a standard upgrade really from any time from the 60s onwards.
I think Clapton did it to his 335, didn't he? And Jimmy Page with his Les Paul and so on. It was a bit of a thing to do, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, I think so. And these days, you know, a lot of the collectors will, if they've got vintage Grovers on there, will just leave them on if they're working fine.
I think with this type of guitar, though, because it's a light, semi sort of hollow guitar, the added weight on the headstock can really make it feel a bit neck heavy. Whereas on something like a Les Paul, perhaps you wouldn't really notice the difference as much.
Yeah, quite possibly. When you're with Les Pauls, you kind of... That's the last thing you want to be doing is adding weight, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're off. Okay, we'll take the truss rod cover off.
Okay, that doesn't look like it's had much of the way of being on and off, does it?
No. It's lovely sometimes when you're working on guitars like this, because you actually feel, you know, I might actually be the first person to have been in here for a while.
Yeah.
Well, look at this. This is black paint all over the truss rod nut. So maybe it means nobody's ever put a wrench on that to actually adjust the truss rod.
Possibly.
And it's a, you know, it's a really thick neck, so it's quite possible that the neck hasn't really moved at all. Either that, or maybe somebody's, I don't know why anyone will touch up a a truss rod in it.
Not when the rest of the headstock seems to be original. It
doesn't appear to be any evidence of breaks. So anyway, let's get the headstock cleaned up and front and back, and we're almost done with the cleaning process. How's that?
Looks great. You can really see the colour of that wood coming up.
You can see how lovely, how the finish has sunk into the grain as well, which I really like. There you go. Let's have a quick look at the front now. One of the nice things about this this particular guitar cleaner, in comparison to stuff like abrasive polishes that people use for cars, is that it doesn't leave this kind of chalky residue in all the cracks and the chips.
Yeah, that's always a surefire sign the guitar's been sort of tea-cutted or whatever, when you take a scratch plate off and there's white dust all falling out, at least.
Exactly.
At least unless it's some old rock star's guitar from the 70s.
Okay, so it's just like a partial clean up on that one.
You pay more for your repro ones if they've got dirt on.
There you go.
You can see the edges of them.
Yeah, and you can see the kind of, they were made with a roller. If you get the light in a certain direction, you can see striations going this way. And apparently the plastic was rolled out. But I'm no expert on these things, so I could be talking out of my hat. Not that ever happens, of course.
Yeah, I've never seen you in a hat.
The fingerboard is absolutely filthy, of course. Well, the headstock front is nice and clean, so what to do about this? It's a real kind of caked on dirt here, so what we're going to do is try and shift this off with a very gentle cleaner called naphtha, which is basically lighter fluid. It sounds like it's going to be really quite serious stuff, but it's although it's flammable, it's actually quite a gentle cleaner for this kind of thing, and doesn't do any damage to the wood. So let's give it a shot and see how we can get on. Okay, well, I've done one of them here with the naphtha, and it's come out really well. So I'm going to do the one next to it. It does take a little bit of time to shift off this dirt. But it does come off surprisingly well. I'm using my fingernail to get right in next to the fret and kind of shift that stuff off the surface of the wood. Of course, this is beautiful Brazilian rosewood under here.
Would you use blades or like a credit card or something to be sort of scraping away at dirt?
I have done. I prefer not to if I can get away with it, but I've done that an awful lot in the past. The way to do it, I'll just show you that. That's just come off one fret. Yeah, so that's pretty gruesome.
That's
there we are. See
A flat notes there.
Yeah. So can you see how those two are cleaned up really nicely?
Yeah, and the real comparison with the ones next to it.
So if I was using a craft knife blade, Stanley blade, I would basically be, I would angle the blade this way and I would push it against like that. It's kind of, you do scrape off the outer layer of the wood, and it's you know, it's not too bad. You're left with a very smooth surface. And actually, I habitually do it with when I'm working on collector's choice Gibsons, because the boards are often quite rough. I don't know if they use some kind of sanding device to kind of put the radius on, but it leaves ridges all the way along the length of the board. And I find that if I scrape in between the frets, that I can end up with a very, very smooth, played-in feeling fingerboard. With something like this, you know, this wood is kind of aged and oxidized really, really nicely. I don't really want to be kind of removing wood that I don't need to remove. So I'm basically going to just take my time. This is, in my view, perfectly clean enough. You can often shift it a little bit with your fingernail. but this is going to come up pretty well, I think.
Is there any danger to the nitro finish from this naphtha?
No, it's as I said, it's really gentle. It's you know, most of these kind of guitar cleaning products as well for the actual finish contain a bit of naphtha as well. So no, it's perfectly safe. Fingerboard's real clean now. Quite happy with this. But one effect of the naphtha is to kind of dry out the wood a little bit. It kind of lightens it in colour and just looks a little bit kind of sorry for itself. So I like oiling fingerboards. It divides opinions. Some guys who work on guitars suggest that it shouldn't be done at all. Others like lemon oil or refined linseed oil, or one friend of mine even uses Johnson's baby oil because he thinks it's the purest mineral oil you can get. I'm quite happy with Jim Dunlop lemon oil. I've been using this one for years, and recently I found this one, which is Music Nomad F1 oil. If you put a dab on there like that, way too much to start, so I just spread it out over the other frets. Instantly see how it goes darker. Just kind of make sure it gets all the way up to the edge of the frets. You only really need one dot. We do 2 frets with that. And what I'm going to do is get this all across the fingerboard. Let's put it on quite thickly. A lot of this is just going to soak in like a sponge, and then I will, if there is any excess left over, just wipe off the excess, give it a quick buff up, and the fingerboard should be good for another few years of heavy playing. Well, I'm just going to see if I can actually take this tailpiece off. So the idea is we've got to pull this out, and if it's wedged in tight, we're in trouble. So let's just start with our finger. Oh!
Perfect.
There you go. Bendigedig. Right, so we can take that, put it in our parts dump, and let's pick a screwdriver for this, probably the trusty blue one. One, two. What we should see under here is, and I hope it's not soldered on, we should see a ground wire, and was soldered on. That's absolutely fine. What I'm just going to do is I'm going to pull that around there like that, and I am going to take a piece of masking tape. I'm just going to tape it down. Last thing I want is for that to kind of get pulled inside and vanish. So that'll just hold it in position while I'm busy working on the guitar. Okay, let's give this a quick tidy up here, because we should get a sense, if we're lucky, of what the original colour of the finish was like before all the fading started to happen. Should be a nice little kind of bracket-sized shadow there. And there you go. This guitar would have been much darker in the lower bout when it was new. Not as dark as the upper bout, but still a really deep, rich colour. Okay, so just going to use some regular chrome polish now, just to bring up a bit of a sheen on this nickel-plated tailpiece. I'm not going to go crazy on this. I just want to kind of refresh it a little bit. It's a bit muckier on the underside, a bit of tarnish. That's nice, actually. Don't want it to look too new. Okay, so that's That's the one side done. We're going to do the other now. Just disentangle the string from the polishing cloth. There we go. Remember we talked about the strings being skewed a little bit too far towards the treble side. So basically what needs to happen is that the whole tailpiece arrangement needs to come towards the bass side. So obviously the screws are fixed in the body, so there's not much you can do there. But the whole thing is counterintuitive really, because you would imagine that in order to move it that way, you would actually push the bracket through towards this end, like this. It's not actually how it works. What I really want to do to get it to swing this way with the string pull is move it the other direction and bring this as far across as I possibly can. Might need a little bit of persuasion. Okay, I think that's about as far as it's going to go. I don't know if that's going to do an awful lot. Might need to open out the bracket a little bit, but let's hope for the best. And hopefully this will just enable the trapeze to pull this way a little bit from the pull of the strings. Okay, so this oil has been soaking on top of the board for about half an hour, I would imagine, and it's soaked in certain places. So basically just going to wipe off the excess now, make sure I get all the way up to the edges of the frets.
How dark and rich that board looks, man.
Yeah, I always feel that they feel like a little bit slicker for string bends. They just kind of play nicer and there's a little bit of oil on the board. I mean, obviously you don't wet oil or anything because you don't want it getting into your string wraps, but something about a board that has been nicely oiled, it just feels just a little bit nicer to play. This particular fingerboard conditioner is completely odour free. I do like the lemon oil one, I think it kind of smells nice, but I don't know, I think they're all much of a muchness really. Some people think you damage the board by oiling them. I've been doing this since the 80s, I guess, and it's never done any of my fingerboards any harm. Maybe I've just been lucky, but it works for me and I don't intend stopping anytime soon, although I'm sure there are much more knowledgeable people than me who kind of feel otherwise. There you go, what do you reckon, Ned?
Especially on the internet.
Yeah.
Looking and great, really good, really looks nice dark
clean,
colour.
Feels nice. Quite pleased with that. Okay, let's get these tuners back on in no particular order. I think what they managed to do was line up more or less the Grover, single Grover screw hole with the original Clusen one. So hopefully somewhere down the line when we restore some original tuners onto this, they'll go on without too much fuss. It's quite quick and easy this. Pop all these in at the back and then there's, we'll flip it over and just put the bushing in on the other side and screw everything down tight. Some of these have become really, really loose and needs to be tightened. See, that screw's almost coming out of there. I don't want to tighten it too much, just a little bit. Just improve the feel of the tuner. Tighten it too much, they won't actually turn. But that one was about to fall to pieces. Okay, that one's on there, that one's on there, and that's the last tuner going on. Yep. Okay, let's flip it over. Okay, so these are in two parts. Okay, there's this kind of washer thing, and then this just goes down on top. I'm only going to do them finger tight, because we know these are coming off again at some point, and you can see how by tightening them so much in the past that the washers have just created these circular dents in the front of the headstock. I'd be lying if I said that I hadn't actually drilled vintage Gibson headstocks to put Grovers on myself back in the distant day.
Standard along with your EMG humbuckers and Carla Tremolo installs.
I never, ever, ever had EMGs. Although I did have a Carla, I've got to be honest. Then again, it was only a 74 Strat, so who cares?
Internet goes wild.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Does that ground wire need soldering on again?
No, I mean, I'm just going to basically a press fit should be absolutely fine. As long as there's some metal to metal contact, we should be all right. It's kind of gleaming, isn't it, that bridge now? Right, there we go. So while we're here, we might as well put this back in.
It's got a big similarity to an acoustic pin.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean,
just a bigger version of it.
They were kind of acoustic guitars, I guess.
Mm.
Okay, right.
Noticeable how far has it moved over that much?
Well, when the string tension comes on, we'll see.
Yes, of course.
There you go. Right, back in a few seconds, and you'll see the whole guitar strung up. Well, the guitar's strung up again, and a little tiny tweak down there seemed to work really, really well. The strings are now perfectly aligned with the fingerboard and also the pole pieces of the pickups, and it should sound better as a result. One tip when you're stringing up a guitar with one of these tailpieces, what seems to work for me is to get the two E strings on first, bring them up to pitch. Then I do A and B strings, again bring them up to pitch. And then lastly I do the D and G, and everything just kind of aligns really nicely when you do it that way. So I'd rather kind of change strings one at a time if I can with one of these bridges than take them all off and put them all back on again. Okay, let's get the pick guard back on. Here's one I polished up earlier. Let's just slot that back in there, like that. And there's the screw I almost put in the pickup cover by mistake. Oops. Okay, make sure all the pots are turned fully up, and then I can push the control knobs back down. Just lining up the 10s with the pointer. And the job's a good one. I think we're actually finished with this, Ed. Finally, we've got the strings on, setup's done, cleanup's done, it's intonated. Are you happy with it?
Oh, it's fantastic. Feels great, colour's really popping now, neck feels nice and smooth, good action, sounds great as well.
Yeah,
really
I'm jealous. I like the colour of this one more than mine. I think it's...
Oh, I don't know. I think they're pretty, not much to choose between them.
Well, you kind of need one of each, don't you? So
definitely
do. I love it. I think it's absolutely great. So we're going to do a little bit of playing at the end of this video, but basically this has just been about how to fix up a dirty old vintage guitar, how to set it up a little bit, how to get it playing its best, and stuff you can do at home, but also, as Ed mentioned earlier in the video, stuff that you can apply to any second-hand, well-used guitar.
That's
really.
it. It doesn't have to be a vintage guitar. Hopefully some really useful tips.
Yeah.
Which you can apply to any guitar and get them playing their best. You know, they sound amazing. So it's worth doing those little tweaks.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've probably gathered by now that we're both really into Gibson ES225s. And we do think they're one of the great bargains of the vintage guitar world, one of the few that are left. So we'll do a bit of playing, as we said, but we're not going to do a whole lot on this video. But we'll be back with another video on 225 shortly, where we'll feature no fewer than four.
Yeah, these two and a couple of others, which will be really good.
Hope so. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe, which is the button down there.
Please do. And any comments you've got, any sort of likes, or let us know.
Okay, thanks for watching.
Thanks, bye.